show today, where we will be discussing the issue of wokeness. And in order to discuss this issue, I've got two very influential and lively voices to join me. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Andrea Jenkyns, MP.
Hi, Bill. Good to see you on the show.
Yeah, lovely to see you as well, Andrea. Great to meet you. And also, as he travels from place to place, a busy man, but a man with lots to say, Mr. Laurence Fox.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Laurence.
Hi, Laurence. Great to have you on. Right, guys, let's get straight into it because there's so much to say on this subject and it's such a lively one. I want to really hear what you've got to say. Let's start the ball rolling with Andrea. What do you understand wokeness to actually mean?
Well, to me, it's painted as equality, but actually views life through an incredibly narrow lens. It doesn't debate, it doesn't discuss. Instead, it screams at you if you disagree with them and disagree with their narrow-minded point of view. I think that's in a nutshell. And I think Laurence and I have both witnessed this so many times, not only on the streets, but on social media, haven't we, Laurence?
We have.
Yeah, I hope that was a vegan sandwich, Laurence, while we're talking about wokeness. So what do you think? Do you think Andrew's spot on there?
I think Andrew's exactly right. I mean, I'd go a bit further and say that it's a religion. It's a new religion. And it does exactly what Andrew says. It cancels people, it silences them. There's some very odd doctrines about it. You know, it insists on things like anti-racism, and it focuses on things you cannot change rather than things that you can. And it's so sad that it's taken hold of the Labour Party, because the Labour Party should be about social mobility, and it's now about trying to change things you can't change, like skin colour. So it's a religion with lots of odd rituals like critical race theory and kneeling to Marxist organisations and wearing masks and all of this sort of stuff. Very odd, pernicious religion without any forgiveness or repentance.
Now, it strikes me that much of what wokeness has become is almost a rebranding of political correctness. And as someone who bears the scars of battles with that from over a decade ago, I wonder if you think that that's what we've got here, sort of a mutant strain of political correctness. And do you think it shares the same aims of political correctness, which obviously came from Mr. Gramsci and his views on cultural hegemony and changing the way that society works, because socialism and Marxism couldn't win by democratic means or by military means, so they seek to undermine. Do you think that's where we are, Andrew, or do you think I'm taking it too far?
No, completely. I mean, I've been campaigning against political correctness for years as well. I remember when I was a councillor in Lincolnshire, my first leaflet was about, having a go at political correctness. That was back in 2009. And I think with Labour and the left, you're right there. I mean, I don't tend to study political ideology. I just look at, common sense, and what feels right. Now, Labour and the left, they've always tried to divide and conquer. Like, they've always pitched class against class, and now they're actually, pitching people against each other when they've got a different viewpoint. It's wrong. I mean, we've only seen, examples of this woke agenda with the Labour Party here in Leeds. With the BLM protests, they completely vandalised our Queen Victoria statue. And what did the Labour Council do? They actually set up a committee to examine if we should remove the statues. I mean, we should be, proud of our history. We should learn from history. We certainly shouldn't remove history and silence it. So I completely agree with you, Bill.
So what a very Labour thing to do, to set up a committee about it. That's playing perfectly to type.
In London as well, I think, isn't it, Laurence, with Mr. Sadiq?
Oh yeah. Sadiq is very, very much a disciple of the religion of obliterating history and rewriting it in his own image. He's as with all things woke, they're exactly the thing that they accuse you of. The anti-racists are the racists, the anti-fascists are the fascists. Men and women nowadays as well, I'm told. So it's an abuse and a beating to death of language, which is the way that we communicate with one another. It's very, very wrong to change the meaning of words, essentially, which is what they're doing. In London, it's so sad to see that London has a mayor who hates England and Britain so much.
Yeah, well, Laurence, you are in the.
Can I add another point as well, Bill, please? I mean, I agree with Laurence with a lot that you say, Laurence. And we should be a society of social mobility, of meritocracy. We should be a society that treats everyone as equal and under the eyes of the law as well. We certainly should be a society of ticking boxes, which we have been for the last few years.
Yeah, and Laurence is there in the woke capital of the world, I would say, probably fighting with New York as being the woke capitals of the world. So right in the thick of the battle there. And this undermining of societal values and of cultural norms through wokeness or political correctness. I guess in London, more than maybe in the northern parts of England and the Midlands where I am, you would see a lot more examples of that, Laurence.
Yes, you do, but actually, encouragingly, whenever I go out campaigning, I meet a lot of people that are totally of this very normal, commonsensical human way of approaching, which is to take someone as you find them, give them the benefit of the doubt, be optimistic and hopeful, and try and have positive human relationships. It's only in this. In the way that someone like Sadiq Khan has sought to divide everybody that you encounter on social media. Actually, when I'm out on the stump talking to people, admittedly my landslide victory maybe not, but you do meet there is a large constituency of people who they don't even feel London is representative of Britain in a lot of ways. They just feel this sort of elite, sneering moral supremacists that walk around telling us all that we're all racist bigots, and it's like, well, hang on a minute, no, we're not. We just want to get on with our lives.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of bonkers ideology as well. I mean, look what Lisa Nandy said, that we need to relook at our army and replace it, with an ethically diverse peace force. I mean, this is our army, for God's sake. We're meant to be defending our country. So I think it's completely bonkers. Licking his lips. Xi Jinping will be licking his lips, won't he, in that one?
Yeah, well, absolutely. The peace force will be absolutely terrifying to him, I'm sure. But one of the arguments that is put forward, certainly when you argue against PC, is that it's actually only politeness. It's only trying to be nice to people, and surely that's what we're all about. What actually, being devil's advocate for a moment, what is actually wrong with the principles of woke? Is it not allowing people to express their sexuality and their gender beliefs and their desire for equality? Is it not allowing them to do that, Andrea? Or are we on the wrong track here? Are we being nasty?
No, not at all. I think we'd all agree we're not being nasty. And I also think as society, we've lost our sense of humour. And I do think that, I know Laurence has got young children, I've got Clifford who's 4. What kind of society are we bringing these children up in who can't even laugh anymore? Look at the BBC, how everything is censored, and look how they fully backed the Black Lives Matters movement without looking at the political credentials. Thank God that we've got people like we've got on this call of standing up and challenging these institutions. It's not about politeness, but it's about being honest and challenging when people got different views to yourself.
Well, yeah, Laurence, I mean, I wanted to come back onto what you said about your landslide victory and just remind you that Brexit will show that you don't have to win an election to actually win the war. So there is something positive in there. But this issue of politeness and good manners, I saw an excellent video clip from you where you were saying your political ideology was basically for people to flip off and leave you to live as you wished and leave us all to do as we wished. That drew condemnation, although I was cheering from the rafters. Do you think that this creation of it being impolite or somehow rude to stand up for freedom and liberty, do you think it's got so much traction that people like yourself are going to be marginalised so far that political success at the ballot box is going to be made almost impossible for this sort of stigma that's being attached through the media?
I think the media are utterly corrupt, actually, which is very sad. No, I don't, because London is not, again, reflective of the country, and it's not extreme political correctness which manifests itself in this sort of moral supremacy that these people decide to meet on you. That's not politeness. Politeness is going, it's having a point of view and they share it. These people shut down all conversation. So what they do is they think of a word that sounds nice, like political correctness, and they go that way, but it's not censorship. No, I think the people of Britain, I think what's going to happen, very depressingly, is that as with all terrible cultural imports from America, this is going to be like Brexit, but on every single issue within our culture. Because there are those that aren't proud of our wonderful country and aren't proud of the sacrifices made by our forebears and want to rewrite history and become anywhere people. But actually the people of Britain don't do that. And I've done a lot of research into this, and actually it's it's wonderful, but you get people who weren't native born Brits who are really proud to be British and the values that Britain upholds. So it's not just a bunch of angry gammons defending our value system. It's people from all different shapes, sizes, sexual orientation, skin colours that go, God, this is a great place to live. It's a fair country, it's a tolerant, welcoming country, and we believe in equality under the law, and we're democratic, well, almost democratic nowadays. So it's I still think there's great stuff that people will fight to defend.
Well, I want to flip this round slightly and start with you on this one, Laurence, and Andrew, you'll understand why after the question. Is it not the case, though, that with this woke agenda and political correctness being taught in schools, where kids are being basically told there are, I think, 72 genders, and climate change is all man-made and that's a fact, and if you don't believe it, you're insane, and Brexit is racist, etc., etc., etc. There's generations coming through as older generations fade away, who are going to make it harder and harder for us, because perhaps have we not already lost the battle by allowing kids in schools to be indoctrinated with this leftist Marxist propaganda?
It's horrendous what's happening in schools. Horrendous, and not just that indoctrination, the SRE and everything else. But the thing is, my son, for example, at his woke academy that he goes to, was told, they announced in assembly that Trump had COVID, and the impetus was for everyone to cheer. And he was very upset about it. And he came home and he said, "Why would you cheer for someone that's sick? Children are not bigots. They're not racist. They're none of these things. They love each other." And so the attempt to indoctrinate our kids is sad. But I think I have to unindoctrinate them frequently. I just go, look, they need taught how to think. Sorry, my brain. How to think, not what to think. Critical thinking. And then, that's up to the parents nowadays. I mean, most parents, I would advise homeschooling, but half the time, dreadful what goes on in schools.
Yeah, well, the reason I asked you that first, Laurence, is because, Andrea, I class you, and correct me if I'm wrong, as being a classical conservative lady and a lady of faith. And a lot of what is being undermined during the time and before, since you've been in Parliament, are all of the things that have made you the lady that you are. Now, as a parliamentarian, surely there must be some more people feeling like you in that Parliament, thinking, what on earth is going on to our country? Why is it being reshaped in front of our very eyes? And as a parliamentarian, what is the discussion? What can be done?
Completely, Bill. I mean, there's lots of us in Parliament who are frustrated, and as I said, we should be living in a meritocracy. I don't think we should just be promoting a woman's agenda. As a country, it should be whoever's right for the role, because if you look at these northern seats, they don't particularly care the background of somebody. They just want someone who's effective. Now, if you look, Boris, our Prime Minister, he was taking on the BBC when he got elected, etc. But then COVID hit. So I think it's gone off the boil in the short term. But I do think we will be challenging again, to be honest. I'm quite confident of that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it, Laurence? It's opened up a gap where people like yourself have come in and done a fine job of challenging things, because Boris and the Conservatives appear to have taken their eye off the ball on challenging this, or some might unkindly say just paid it lip service. And with the changes that have gone on this year due to COVID restrictions and so on and so forth, there's another layer of morality of you must do as you're told, you must not question. And you were at the Freedom March on the weekend. So I know this is something that you'll have a strong view on.
Yeah, I mean, good for Andrea, because she is a straight-talking conservative, of which I am grateful. There are some. I don't share her optimism that Boris Johnson's ever going to deal with this. In fact, I think he loves it about as much Keir Starmer does. Sorry, Andrea, but that's how I feel. Yes, in terms of the march, the thing that astonished me about the march was A, the numbers of people, and B, the absolute media blackout over it. The fact that you've got tens of thousands of people, and these marches are growing. You know, they're not getting smaller, and every single one of these people who is, you know, they're just ordinary working people. They're quite desperate because they were the ones that are forgotten by furlough. They've had their livelihoods destroyed by these lockdowns. Those people are very, very committed when it comes to things like vaccine passports and stuff like that. So I don't know, it'll be interesting to see. And Boris himself has said it's okay to be woke. You know, he said it himself. So it's not okay to be woke, Boris. It undermines the very fabric of what Great Britain's all about. So when you next see him, Andrea, will you tell him that from me?
I mean, but you've also got to look at who we've got at the heart of government. I mean, look at Kemi Badenoch. She's fantastic. You know, she's very straight talking. Look how Liz Truss said, what did she say? It's about fairness, not favouritism. Look at Robert Jenrick, you know, getting every government building to be flying the flags. So, you know, it is there, but we need to build on it stronger. I agree with that. Let's get COVID out the way, and let's you know, bring more common sense to the way we rule in the UK.
But Andrew, do you not think that what's happening at the moment, and we won't go into the COVID discussion, but we're talking about marches of people with a certain point of view being ignored by the media. It happened over Brexit. It's happened time and time again where ordinary people have had a point of view and Parliament has become disassociated and distant from that point of view. I myself, a few years ago, gained from that by becoming elected to a couple of positions on an anti-establishment ticket. Do you not feel, as a parliamentarian, and as someone who I think, as Laurence said, you know, I respect as well, as a real conservative, do you not fear that the more your party, whilst in government, appears to be aloof from various concerns, be it wokeness, councils on ripping down statues, you name it, the more danger is that you will have again another insurgent movement which will undermine you and cause you the same kind of difficulties that you experienced 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago?
No, because if we look at, I mean, look at the new intake, 2019 intake. A lot of Northerners there, straight-talking, patriotic Brits who, you know, believe like you and I do on this call. So, you know, we do hold the party to account. We might do it more privately. But I think, like Laurence touched on earlier, it is about the institutions and the media, and it's and I'm glad we've got like people like Laurence and yourself, Bill, who are holding people to account. And it is the way things are reported. We saw right throughout Brexit, didn't we, Bill? How, you know, we are these dumb, thicko racists, aren't we, for being Brexiteers? It's just crazy. And look at what I think we should have, you know, is our justice system should be colorblind. You know, it shouldn't matter where you come from in life. If you've broken the law, then, you know, you will be heavily punished. And we need that common sense at the heart of every institution in the UK. That's what resonates with people. And when I saw on you this week that, you know, we've got those climate change activists, and one of the candidates in London, the greeny ones, who is actually, you know, smashing HSBC bank windows. You know, it's ludicrous. You know, we shouldn't turn a blind eye to stuff like this. And so I'd like to see stronger punishments, regardless of where you come from in life. You know, people feel the full arm of the law.
And not only smashing windows, but doing it in the most pathetic middle-class wimpish way that I've ever seen in my life. But Andrea's nicely brought us on to an area that I wanted to bring in just towards the latter stages of our discussion, Laurence. A few examples of how this woke agenda is not just funny, because, you know, there was a time when we would laugh at political correctness, but as Nigel famously said in his Parliament speech at the EU at the end, you know, we're not laughing now, and it's taken grip. So if you were to try and define and finesse a couple of examples for the viewers of where this has taken hold in a really dangerous and disturbing way, where would you go with that?
Last week, as part of my campaigning, I went to speak to the Metropolitan Police, and an assistant commissioner who came out, and he started using some quite interesting turns of phrase in terms of things like safe spaces and human rights. He was talking about why do we have to uphold the law and human rights as part of the Metropolitan Police, not the police both. And I got to a point with him and I said, is the Metropolitan Police a specifically anti-racist organisation? And he said yes. And now that, to me, is a profoundly worrying development for our capital's police force, because essentially the whole, as this great linguistic takeover that the woke are all about, is the assumption is that if you're not an anti-racist, you're a racist.
Yeah.
So, that terrifies me in terms of the Metropolitan Police. I can view that in the terms of the two-tier policing system that is rabid in London. So that's one example of it. And then, yes, the Extinction Rebellion people, why is someone allowed to smash a window of a bank without being arrested when you're dragging a Christian minister off the steps today in London? This is astonishing. So I think people, sadly, British people are tolerant, kind, warm, and they will take up a flack. But when this gets more, and as it's going to get more, as more of it comes in America, at some point the Brits are going to turn around and go, no thank you, in a very stern and serious way.
And that warms us up for your answer to that, Andrew, because I want to come to you with ask your example as well. But do you not concur with Laurence there that we are very tolerant and we do accept a lot until we don't? And then when we don't, the backlash can sometimes be equally disturbing and equally bad to the issues that we're facing. And surely, I think sometimes this is what these agents provocateurs are trying to do. They're trying to get the backlash so that those of us who fight back can be seen as the bad guys. So with that in mind...
Bill, we saw it right throughout, one side against the other, making us out to be the baddies, and making us all out to be unsavoury in our approach to life. But if I can give an example, which is completely ludicrous, James Wong, who presented BBC's Country File, recently wrote on Twitter, UK gardening culture has racism baked into its DNA. I mean, this is the stuff of bonkers, actually. Common sense out the window. But, we need to hold these people to account. This is a taxpayer-funded organisation, and we need to hold all the media to account when they're reporting like this, because, it doesn't actually resonate outside of this Westminster wokey elite on the doorsteps of in Morning and Happen Like Me, where we have the one of the biggest St George's Day parades with 10,000 people joining it. We are proud Brits, we're tolerant, and we've always been a diverse society. So like Laurence said earlier, we should embrace the positives rather than always like the woke agenda, embracing what people can't change.
Okay, and as we come on to the final leg of our conversation, I just wanted to throw in my favourite example of political correctness from many years ago, where Flintshire County Council renamed in their schools a favourite pudding to Fruit Richard because Spotted Dick would offend.
Yeah. Do you know in Parliament they also call it Spotted Richard, and I remember tweeting about it a couple of years ago, how crazy this is.
How ludicrous. Yeah. Final part, guys, because I know you're both very busy people. I'll start with Andrea and finish with Laurence, as Andrea started. Where do we go from here? How do we constructively and in a British reasonable way fight back against this pervasive woke agenda?
I think it's important, the stuff you're doing, Bill, with shows like this. Social media and YouTube, etc., reaches so many people. So I think that's important that you keep that up, and that we continue defending freedom of speech, and we challenge the public figures. We challenge campuses where our university kids are indoctrinated with certain views, and we be brave and not be silenced. I think that's the most important thing. We won out in the end with Brexit, Bill. I've got hope that we can win out with this.
Excellent. Laurence, brave and not be silenced. I guess you concur with that.
I absolutely agree with Andrea, and I also agree with the wonderful new intake of Conservative MPs. I think I'm releasing very quickly after the mayoral election a very detailed paper on infringements on freedom of speech in UK law, with a forward by Donald assumption and some legal remedies to that. And I think we stand up and do not be bullied by people, because again, these people are talking about being kind and how to be tolerant are the nastiest, most vicious bullies I think I've ever encountered in my life. So, we have children. It's really important that we set an example to our children. We're not perfect, obviously, but it's very important that you teach your kids to stand up to bullies, and that's what we must do.
Excellent. And just to wind up the woke, I think it's nice to say that that's almost a Churchillian sentiment, and I'm sure that our woke friends watching this will be delighted that we are saluting Sir Winston Churchill as we have this conversation. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Sorry that we couldn't be longer, but I know you're both so busy, so it's wonderful to have you. Much appreciated. And I want to thank you both and say, keep up the good fight. Let's fight for our freedoms and fight against political correctness and wokery wherever we find it.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you, Laurence. And yes, keep up the fight.
Thank
you,
guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks again for watching. Please do share this around.